If you are an aspiring tattoo artist or wanting to learn how to tattoo, maybe you're already tattooing but in the early phases, I would recommend checking out this book right here that's called the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. I wrote this book and I created this book so that anyone can read it and at the very least walk away with a basic understanding to some common tattooing practices. This book is now available on my Amazon author page. If you head on over to Amazon.com, type in Daniel Yuck or the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook, you will see this book pop up. Another way to reach this book is by clicking the links in the description or a pinned comment section below to navigate to the product page. Should you have any questions at all, I encourage you to please drop a comment down below. Rest assured, I'll do my absolute best to assist in the best possible direction. In short, the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook is a comprehensive and illustrative book that I wrote to better understand how to tattoo. When we are starting out, there is no practical way that we're going to know how to go about applying a tattoo on any aspect or on any front rather. There's just no way that we're going to know how fast we need to move our hand. There's no way to know how deep we're going to need to go or deposit ink into the skin. When I started my tattooing journey, I barely knew how to set up a tattoo station, let alone, kind of complete an entire workflow from beginning to end while applying a clean tattoo. There's just absolutely no way that I was going to go about applying a clean tattoo at the beginning of my tattooing venture. The Fundamental Tattoo Handbook was designed to help you understand the fundamentals of tattooing in a fun and illustrative manner. I go over topics such as needle depth to tattoo printers, autoclaves, hand speed to voltage, dealing with difficult clients, and a lot more, in which I will show you here in a moment. The point is, you're going to find yourself in hours of fun and educational tattooing reads when picking up the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. Not only that, once you're done completing all of the fun reads, at the end of the book, you are going to be greeted with an assortment of various exercises that you can kind of immediately apply all of your findings and learnings from the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook and go ahead and start applying them on the papers in the back directly within the book, or you can kind of put a paper over, practice on the paper if you don't want to mark straight into the book, which I will also get into here in a moment. My point here is that the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook contains loads of key bits of information that can provide us with a more conducive, clean, safe tattooing experience, not only for us, but for the people that we choose to tattoo, as well as for the overall tattooing experience, especially in the earlier days when we are practicing on paper and fake skin. This is a close-up look at the book itself, so you can see it's a gloss finish. Let me show you the width real quick. So for those who are curious on the width, this is how thick the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook is. You can see it is a comprehensive illustrative guide to understand tattooing. I'm going to show you a full 360. That's the spine and the sides. So it isn't necessarily a small booklet or anything like that. This thing is jam-packed with key points of information that I feel are crucial for a smoother, safer tattooing workflow. You can see that it is a gloss finish as well, all the way through. And that is the front. This is going to be the back right here. What I want to show you is I'm going to open up this front here and I kind of want to show you the table of contents. Taking a closer look, we're going to notice that we do have a bunch of different topics ranging from things like how to practice with minimal gear, tattooing is a mental game, even how to deal with a difficult client, retuning, staying strong, technical versus mechanical applications within tattooing, tattoo motors, tattoo machines. So basically we're going to be understanding tattoo machines. It says tattoo machine motor mechanics, tattoo power supply types, tattoo power supply pros and cons. We have standard power supply, advanced display, standard power supply chain connection, so you can kind of see the key things that we're talking about here. I'm not going to necessarily go through all of them, but I'll kind of skim through them and then show you so that we can kind of have an idea that we're gradually progressing as these pages go throughout. One key thing that I want to touch base on here is if I go to the next page, there's going to be another page of table of contents right here, and the pages end at 219. So there's 219 pages here worth of fun educational reads that are delivered to you in an illustrative, fun, easy to consume manner. This is a book that I am very, very proud of, and I hope that you will enjoy upon picking it up. Allow me to kind of skim through it so that we can kind of see some illustrations, and then I'll go back to the topics that we talk about in this book. But you can kind of see that it is delivered in a fun and illustrative manner. There's quizzes, there's illustrations to deliver the points, and there's loads of literature that you can rely on and depend on to further educate yourself so that way you can better your tattooing abilities. Not only that, at the end, once we reach the end point here, there's actually a guide that has a bunch of different supplies. This is going to be the book version, and obviously we can't click any links in the tattoo supply guide right here. However, there is a QR code that you can download the digital version, and you can go ahead and click on any of the links that you see here within the digital version and navigate to the product page if you're interested in those products. And this is basically a tattoo supply guide that lists just a bunch of different needles, inks, furniture, machines that you can kind of pick out if you don't know where to start when picking out supplies. This right here is available for you for free to download. At the end of the supply guide, you're going to see that the exercises begin. So with these exercises right here, we're going to be able to practice our basic lining. We can practice right within the book, or we can practice by putting a sheet over and then practicing on like a piece of regular paper, notebook paper if you can see through it, or even stencil paper, tracing paper, that sort of thing if you don't want to mark in the book. That's going to be subjective to each their own. However, you can definitely mark in the book, or again, you can place a piece of paper over like that. You can make these slits right here as you see, and then slide the paper into those slits to kind of hold it in place. That is acceptable for those that choose not to mark in their book. So the basic exercises consist of lining, shading, dot work. As you can see, we have textures like smoke, we have fur textures as well. We have illusions, dot work, as you can see. Just a bunch of fun little exercises that are here to help you get started, to help you get comfortable with moving. Now, you can practice with a regular pen, or you can practice with a tattoo machine. That's going to be to each their own. You can see I have a ballpoint cartridge, and I even go over this in the book as well, and I have a regular pen. I can use a pencil if I like, so that way I can erase. That's going to be 110% up to you. But my point is, you can get straight to studying and practicing all in one go. So like, for example, if I'm wanting to understand dot work, I can go to the table of contents and I could find understanding dot work. And then when I do, I'll navigate to that page, read on it, and then go back and then practice what I learned. Understanding dot work is going to be right here on page 138. So you can see I have understanding dot work right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to consume this page here. I'm going to learn as much as I can. Once I'm done reading and consuming, I would go ahead and go back over here and then basically apply what I learned to these areas to better my craft directly in this book. That is 110% acceptable, and I feel like that's a pretty cool, innovative, modern workflow. We can read, practice. We can read, learn, and apply. To me, it really doesn't get any better than that. Going back to the table of contents though, if I look over here, navigating to the middle of the book, we can see that we're going to be looking at what is a tattoo station. We're going to be looking at things like what's cross-contamination, how to avoid cross-contamination, sanitization versus sterilization, approved tattooing environments. We're going to be talking about what goes into creating clean lines. We're going to talk about understanding ink deposits. We'll also be talking about things like understanding lining angles, understanding angles with round shaders, understanding using small amounts of ointments and why, what are tapers. A lot of these things here are things that I've come across within my tattooing career, and these things aren't necessarily readily available. These are things that we have to kind of experience and learn for ourselves, or have someone tell us, so that way we kind of know when we are experiencing certain adversities what we can do to accommodate for a cleaner, smoother, more conducive workflow. We'll also be going over things like introducing needles into the skin. We'll be going over shading tones, shading placements. We'll be going over stipple shading, lining. We'll be going over dot work. We'll be going over various types of shading. We'll be going over packing, and that's the middle. And please keep in mind, I am literally just kind of skimming here. There are a bunch of different topics that we're going to be going through, as you can see, that I do touch base on within the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. Some more things that we're going to be going over is a tattoo needle guide. We will be going over tattoo printers, tattoo furniture. We will be going over understanding intermediate lining, dot work, lining, shading, and packing, all from basic to intermediate. But we are basically going to be going over fundamentals that are necessary within tattooing in a basic, intermediate, and advanced format. So we are all going to be doing that here within the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. This thing is really my pride and joy. There's just so much information here. This is something that I'm very, very proud of, and I do feel like it's going to help a bunch of different tattoo artists all over the world, even tattoo collectors. It doesn't matter if you're already tattooing, if you're an aspiring tattoo artist or a tattoo collector. There's something to gain and benefit from the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. As I mentioned earlier, I do deliver the information in a fun illustrative format. So for example, let's say I want to know more about tattoo needle anatomy. If I take a look right here, I'm going to find tattoo needle anatomy and it's going to be on page 54. What I would then do is navigate to page 54 and then I would read on tattoo needle anatomy. Taking a closer look, you're going to see that I do deliver this information on tattoo needle anatomy in a fun and illustrative manner. I chose to go with an illustrative format because I feel like it'd be more memorable versus pictures, making it more of a serious environment. So I try to make the environment when reading this more conducive to something memorable as opposed to something that would resemble that of like formal education in a school. I feel like this is much more fun to look at, and it also resembles that of an actual cartridge. So if you take a look at a cartridge, this is going to look awfully close to cartridges that you may experience just depending on the manufacturer. There will be fluctuations, which we do go over in the book as well. But you can see that this page talking about tattoo needle anatomy is delivered in a fun and illustrative format. You can see that there's an actual picture right here of the ballpoint pen, and that's illustrated as well just fine. I did touch base on that as well, as I do feel like it's important. Let's say I want to learn how to apply pendulum motions, understand the pendulum process. I'm going to look for that, and I see right here there's two sections that say understanding pendulum motions and another section that I applied that says how to apply pendulum motions that are going to be on page 135 and 136. I'm going to navigate to those pages. I can understand pendulum motions right here. On this side, you can see that I deliver the information in a fun and illustrative format in efforts to make the experience memorable, to obtain the information so that way we can actually apply it to our tattooing workflow. Let's flip the script real quick. Let's say I am a tattoo collector. Let's say that I notice some of my tattoo lines are bulging out. And let's say they were done by different artists and some are bulging out more than others, and I really don't know why. There's a section here called Tattoo Ink Settling and Bolding Explained, and that's going to be on page 68. If I navigate on over to page 68, we're going to see that I do list in a fun and illustrative manner what happens over the years, and I basically explain why we are going to be experiencing bolding and settling of the ink. So you can kind of see though that I did think about a lot of different aspects when applying this book. I wanted this book to be informative not only for aspiring tattoo artists, I wanted this book to be informative for tattoo artists alike as well as tattoo collectors. The Fundamental Tattoo Handbook is unique to its kind. I really don't think that there's anything like it because I embedded my personality into this book right here. What I did was I took subjects that were tough to understand and I did my best to relay them in a manner that makes them easy to understand, but not only that, that makes them actually fun to understand. So that means, let's say if we may not understand it the first, second time, then maybe the third or fourth time, we will not only understand it, we may remember it for the course and duration of our tattooing career. So that right there I feel is invaluable. The way that information has been delivered to me has always been invaluable. Sometimes I receive information, sometimes it goes right over my head. So I did my best to take topics that were very, very tough to understand and relay them to you in a manner that's really easy to understand. It's also in a book form so you can read and develop at your own pace. Let's say I'm wanting to learn how to apply textures. I see sections right here that are going to be textural illustrations, understanding textures. That's going to be on page 141 and 142. I would go to those pages, read up on them. Once I feel comfortable with the information that I've obtained, find the texture section in the back here and begin practicing. Now, there are a couple of ways that I can practice, which I'm going to demonstrate now. Now, I can use a regular pencil if I'd like. I can use a ballpoint pen, or I can use a tattoo machine. All of them are 110% acceptable. So here I have a pencil. I can simply practice directly in here if I'd like, just like so, and then erase if I'm not ready to commit. Let's say if you don't want to mark in your book, that is also acceptable. What you can do is you can get tracing paper or stencil paper like this, simply place it over and then kind of hold it in place and practice like so. Now again, that's with a pencil. we can use a ballpoint pen, or we can even use a tattoo machine. Ballpoint pens that I like to use are Bic or this one right here. These are some that work fine. This is going to be Pentel. So either or a Bic or a Pentel will work just fine. Now, another thing is, you can see here that I have a tattoo machine with a ballpoint cartridge, in which I actually do go over in the book as I showed you earlier in the video. I can use this to get the absolute most out of my practice. So let's say if you don't have machines yet, then you're going to be using a pencil or a pen, and you probably just want to do it straight into the book, or you could probably get journal paper and place it over and practice on that as well. Let's say you do have a machine, then you may want to get some ballpoint cartridges, so that way you can optimize and get the most out of your practice. Another cool feature is you can see that it has these little lines right here in the corner. But what that's for is that we essentially, it actually explains up in the front as well. I just want to kind of point that out real quick. Right here it shows you can get an X-Acto knife, and you basically cut these little slits here, and it's kind of supposed to act as a little pocket to kind of hold your paper in place to allow you to kind of treat it more like a tattoo. Now, you don't need to do that, so if you don't want to cut your book, you don't necessarily have to. Stencil paper or really thin paper doesn't really pocket well into slits, just so you know, but thicker paper like a journal paper will pocket well into that. Here I have an X-Acto knife. I got a paper and I just folded it up like so. I'm going to place it behind so that way when I make the slits, it doesn't do any damage to the paper behind. And then I'm just going to make the slits here. I don't need much pressure. I just want to make sure that I make a slit deep enough to make it through the paper, so that way there's actually a slit, as you can see, like that. And then kind of put the knife under here, or the X-Acto, to bring this slit a little higher, because that's where the paper is going to go under. I'm going to repeat that 3 more times. So there we go. And then I'm going to slide this down, make sure that every time I create one of these that I am making the slit here on the back pad here, so that way I don't damage the paper in the back. And then once I do that, I could just grab the X-Acto, bring these slits a little higher, and then basically now I have little pockets here that are going to allow me to slide my paper under, so that way I can kind of lock it in place. Just gonna do it like that. There we go. Turn the X-Acto, as you see, sideways. There we go. And now I have little slits there to kind of pocket a paper that's the size of that in there, like so. So for me, what I would do is basically kind of measure this out. I can always just like draw a line here and a line here and cut that out and then slide it in there. Here I have the paper cut, slits in place, and then I'm just gonna do my best to kind of slide it in place. Now I don't expect perfection, I just kind of want it to hold as cleanly as I can get it to hold here. So there we go. So now I have a paper that's a little bit smaller than the square. I actually just trimmed off a little excess that makes it smaller than the square, so that way it could fit in there just nicely. So now that you see I have a piece of actual stencil paper over the textures, I can then either get a pencil, and I can kind of start positioning and posturing myself in a manner that allows me to see the design underneath, so that way I can apply it. I can use a pen, or I can use a tattoo machine. Neither of these approaches are wrong. It's however you want to go about practicing. I would recommend using a tattoo machine when you get comfortable, just to make the absolute most out of your practice and optimize your practice. And basically practicing with a tattoo machine will look a little something like this. So I have my ink claw challenger right here, and then I'm going to kind of pick a spot exactly like I would tattooing, where I'm going to start, and then I would just gently begin applying this exercise to the best of my ability, using the information that I picked up within the book earlier. Posture, position, make sure I'm comfortable. Pendulum motions, introduction. All of these are important variables to consider. So you can kind of see that I'm getting a cool little textured appearance here. Let me see if I can bring it closer to the camera. So you can see I'm getting a nice textured appearance there. And this process would essentially be repeated with any of these exercises that I want. Once again, to confirm, I can practice with a pencil, with a ballpoint pen, or with a ballpoint pen cartridge and a tattoo machine. I can also practice using stencil paper or maybe regular journal paper, placing it over and locking it in the slits like so, or I can practice directly into the book. You can use any one of these combinations to go ahead and practice. All of it would be sufficient depending on where you are within your tattooing journey would kind of determine what would best suit you. However, practicing in these ways is 110% possible. You can study lining, go straight to practice. You can study shading placement, go straight to practice. You get the idea. So you can see, I just got a quick session in right here, real time, of practicing textures and doing this eyebrow. I do feel like it was fun practice. You can see the paper there was also a challenge to kind of hold into place and kind of mimic that of the tattooing process. So that is a cool approach. I feel like that's modern, that's new, and it is something that is applicable because a lot of what I used here is the exact same technique that I would use if I'm applying this on paper, fake skin, and human skin. And the results would be very, very similar to what I got here. My point here is, and I can really do this all day and express how much fun I can have in this book and how much we can actually do, but I feel like the point has been proven. We can definitely practice within this workbook. If we don't want to damage the workbook, we could apply a sheet of stencil paper as you saw here, and then just simply practice directly onto the stencil paper. You can see it does make for sufficient practice. That's actually a very nice textured look there as well. So for those that are aspiring to become a tattoo artist or getting into tattooing, maybe even you're thinking about starting to collect tattoos or even collecting tattoos, this book will be for you. There's something to take with you throughout your entire tattooing venture, whether you're collecting or applying. I really feel like it doesn't matter when it comes to the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. I'm very excited for this book, and I think that when you read it, you will be too. It's actually a really fun read. There's actually a lot of useful information that you could take and immediately apply to your tattooing workflow. Now, that will be it for this one. If you have any questions at all, I encourage you, drop a comment down below. I'll do my absolute best to assist in the best possible direction. If you are interested in purchasing the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook, I will be leaving my Amazon affiliate links for you in the description below and in a pinned comment, so that way you can navigate to the product page for your copy. Or you can head on over to Amazon.com, type in Daniel Yuck or the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook into Amazon, and this book cover will pop right on up. If you found this video helpful or if you enjoyed this book, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, as I would truly appreciate your support. With that being said, I thank you for your time and I appreciate you watching. Have a great day.